Well, you asked for it and you got it. Here's a road trip review mid-road trip. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All.
And misinformation.
We are in South Padre at the Pearl Hotel, and just FYI, we spent like over an hour driving around, so we put in time trying to find a perfect place, and then we realized our balcony was a perfect place. Back here is Starbase in the background. I'll put in a picture in between. Let me see if I can get it to refocus. Yeah, there we go. Readjust the exposure. But anyway, it's back there behind us. This has got a fantastic view. And by the way, we're going to talk about products and stuff like that today. None of these are sponsored. These are just all things that we've purchased or whatnot, So I just want to be clear. So obviously, we're staying at the Pearl. We paid for the Pearl. We're not sponsored by them. And there are other choices. Behind us is the Holiday Inn back there. That's where Mars Embassy stays pretty much permanently. And Airbnbs and plenty of other things out there. So anyway, there's a lot of stuff.
I am amazed by the view, though.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
you can't see it in the video, but, I mean, this is... You'll have to take a picture and insert it.
Yeah, especially on a day like today. It's like you can see it really, really well. And it's as the crow flies, it's really not that far away from where we are. We're, I think, 5 to 7 miles. I don't know. I think it's 5 miles to the tip of the island and then maybe like 7 miles to here or something. So it's not that far away. You wouldn't want to be too much closer than this, honestly, during a rocket launch.
Yeah.
So, except if you go to Rocket Ranch, which we're going to do a review of as another video. So wait for that one to come. Anyway, road trip. What do we have on the notes? Okay. I took down some notes. Sorry, it's very windy out here, so it's like blowing the camera around and everything.
Yeah. One thing that we still get a lot of comments and questions and thoughts about is range anxiety. Yeah,
so no. It just isn't an issue. We drove, I just calculated it out, I think 1,630 miles so far. We're not quite halfway through the trip. Obviously, we've been driving around a lot here. But range anxiety is just not an issue. It's
not in the Tesla.
Yeah, not in the Tesla.
We're
going to talk about other vehicles in just a little bit down the line. But in the Tesla, you put it into the computer. The computer says we're going to go here as the next stop. I think originally it had us slated for 8 stops, but as you drive, the computer's constantly recalculating, and if it decides that you're going to get too low of a battery before you get to the next stop, then it'll just recalculate for you. And you'll be driving along, and all of a sudden it'll go like beep, 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 and it'll like recalculate, and then suddenly it tells you to stop at another place. So really not a problem at all. It's so pleasant not to have to think about any of that stuff, right? You don't think about where you're going to stop. You don't think about range. You always, I don't know, maybe when I was younger and would just drive without stopping and do the pit stop thing. But usually I have to pee after a couple hours anyway, so it's like stopping isn't such a bad thing. And the amenities are good. We're going to talk about bathrooms. There's pretty much always bathrooms at every one of the places. I mean, that's one of the things they do. And there's usually pretty decent restaurants, sometimes just like McDonald's or something. But we had dinner on the way down here at Rock and Roll Sushi, which was pretty nice. Yeah. I thought that was decent.
It was good. No, and I feel like this is something that continues to be something that comes up because there's still misconceptions about it.
Right.
But it's not a thing.
Yeah.
We had it the once, and then after that we were like, okay, we get it now.
The one thing I will say is that traveling, because we go to my parents' house, which is a road trip. It's shorter, but it's up the northeast coast. So 85 to 95 and up there to Washington D.C. A lot more gas stations, a lot more modern chargers with 250 kilowatts and stuff. Going this direction is a lot of older chargers. There weren't a lot of new ones that had been put in place since we did this 15 months ago. So, something Tesla could do in the future certainly would be to put in a few more modern ones that were 250 kilowatts, or maybe even replace the ones that are there with more, with faster charging. Because it did take longer. When you have the 150, it'll take you an extra 5 or 10 minutes to charge up versus having a 250. So there's definitely a difference. You notice going west. So what we did was we took 85 south to Mobile, Alabama, and then drove across to Texas at Houston, and then went down. And so, in a few of those places there were new ones, and that was really nice. But most of them were the same places we stopped 15 months ago. So, it could be better. They're fine. But you definitely notice the East Coast, they've put in a ton of new ones over the last year. And so it makes the trip even easier because you actually have a lot of choices as to where you want to go. So it's becoming more and more like gas stations, where you can be like, nah, I don't want to stop at that one because it doesn't have the amenities I want and things like that. But in terms of range anxiety, nah. I mean, you're going to get to the next place. It's no big deal at all. So
yeah, and that segues exactly into the next thing that we're going to talk about, which you've already talked about now, is the difference in traveling north rather than traveling west. But I happen to prefer the superchargers that are at gas stations. Those are my favorite to stop at.
Right.
Although traveling out west, I realized what was different this time. The new ones that we did stop at, a lot of them were at Targets.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's the thing, but
they've co-branded with the red.
I like the ones that are at the Targets because it's at a Target. But there's a bathroom. There's typically a Starbucks in there, you know, and there's other things around. So it's going to be heavily populated. The only thing about those is at night those things shut down. So when those shut down, you're not like at a gas station or something like that. It's it's not. So definitely during the day it's great, but at night I would see it being a problem.
Yeah, after those places close down. But you know, on the road, of course, there will be gas stations a stop or two up the highway, so you can always stop. But it's inconvenient to have to stop, charge, and then go to a different place to go to the restroom. So it is nice to have that. So that's definitely an issue. All right, next
overall,
up,
though, we're super happy.
Yeah, it's very easy. Oh, yeah. Speaking of gas stations, a negative of driving the Tesla, which is kind of funny, is cleaning your windshield. You know, because like when you're road tripping with a gas car, you stop, you get gas, and you like wipe off the bugs and all the garbage.
I don't know that everybody does that every single time.
I do that.
John does that every single time.
I'm hardcore about that.
And it's made me to where I do it now too. But I can remember when I first started going on trips with John and him. I would take pictures because it was like it was kind of like a full being at one of those old full self-serve places, because he would get out. He would gas up. He would clean everything, you know, kick the tires, you know, and everything.
If only I did an oil change while we were at it.
He took the whole walk around the car, you know, kind of thing. But we do miss that now at a lot of places. So a lot of times John drives up to the gas station just to, you know, and then it's a good, you know, laugh or giggle or whatever to say, I wonder how many people are, you know, going to stare at us for pulling our Tesla up to.
There was one place going
station.
up to my parents' house the last time that actually had put a windshield wiper thing right by where the charging stations were. It was a gas station, but I was like, that's pretty cool. Also, a lot of the charging stations last year didn't have garbage cans at them, and they do now.
Yeah,
and
that's starting to happen.
That is really nice. Yeah, you know, so whoever's taking care of that, we appreciate it, because it's a pain in the butt, you know, if there's no garbage can there, because you know, you get your food and your drink, and you just collect garbage, and you need to throw it away as you're going. So
honestly, I feel like what it may be, and I don't really see like Tesla car owners. I don't know. I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't stereotype. But it could be that garbage was collecting there, and so the people at whatever were like, obviously there needs to be a trash can here, you know, kind of thing. So that would be but it is very convenient. We do like those. But the windshield wiper was a good one.
What do we got next?
Bathrooms we already spoke about.
We talked about that. As long as the places are open, and gas stations are great because a lot of them are 24 hours, so they'll be open, you know, pretty much all the time. So
I feel kind of my age thinking about that being one of the positives of having to go to the bathroom so much, you know. All
right, next up, a lot of people. We mentioned that we got new tires before the road trip, and they were really good. We got Bridgestone Potenza Sports. From Costco, it was $12.78. I just checked before we did the video to see how much that was. That was all the fees, all the stuff that goes with it. Again, not sponsored by any of these things. We just have had a very good experience. The tires, we had Continental, I don't even remember the name of them, but whatever comes with the car.
We were worried about switching.
Yeah, we were super worried.
Yeah, because you know, the tires that came with it said that they were rated for, you know, the and John videos obviously a lot in the car, so that's something that we were concerned with. But I've been extremely happy with them. Yeah,
they're if you live in the north where it snows a lot in the winter, the one downside is they're not supposed to be real good. I don't particularly care because I live in Georgia, but they did say that they're not really good all season tires. But in terms of wet, and, you know, iffy conditions, things like that. But road grip, I'm telling you, it was really a revelation to get in the car and drive home and how quiet they were compared to the Continentals. It was a lot better. So again, our Continental tires are from 2020, end of 2020. So maybe they've improved their quietness as well. But these tires were really, really nice. So we very much appreciated it. They seem to drive fantastic. They haven't blown a flat, so that's knock on wood.
Yeah, John asked me my thoughts on the tires this morning, and I was like, well, none of them's blown yet.
Yeah, so that's a good thing.
So yeah,
put a few miles on them now, and they haven't gone flat. So yeah. So anyway, that's what we got. Bridgestone Potenza Sports. Yep. And I assume any place that sells Bridgestone tires would be happy to get them for you. So yep. Okay.
The next thing is obviously, and we've talked about this a lot, being able to sleep in the Model Y.
Yes, and we're going to do a whole separate video on that. But the short answer is, TLDR, yes, you can sleep in the Model Y as long as you're not more than about 6 feet tall. That's the one big caveat.
Yeah.
Yep.
Unless you want...
Unless you just want to curl up,
Yeah. Which is totally a thing, too.
I guess.
But
maybe you could stick your head through between the seats. That would be kind of weird, but maybe you could do that.
I don't know.
Anyway.
I feel like I'm short, so I don't need the whole space.
Right.
And so if I needed to scoot up more, I could, and someone could lay, but it's fun.
So the next question everybody has on their minds is full self-driving and how that works with the whole long road trip thing.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, we've got
shirts.
that's FSD Beta Toughest Critic, and let's see, FSD Beta Tester. So if you're doing a his and hers road trip, or a his and his road trip, or a hers and hers road trip, whatever it is, they have them. All of them are in the merch store, so definitely check that out if you're interested. But as far as full self-driving is concerned, I think that's the best thing about a Tesla for a road trip is, the electric thing is cool and all of that, but having full self-driving, and you don't even have to have the expensive version, even the one that's kind of the advanced cruise control that you just get with the car. On the highway, it keeps the lane. It really keeps the lane, not like Ford and GM where if it turns more than a certain number of degrees, it won't work. It'll do all of that stuff automatically, and it's, especially with the full self-driving, like the real version, like it passes other cars. It does lane interchanges, highway interchanges. It's just so nice.
I've definitely been, really have been its toughest critic because John loves it so much. But I'm getting more comfortable with it. As a matter of fact, the first time we switched over, and I also get car sick really easily, so it's better if I drive, but I don't particularly like driving the car because John wants it to be doing the beta thing. But after the first time that we stopped, I started driving. Then I was like, no, I'll keep driving next time, and I ended up driving.
Yeah, you drove a lot of it.
A good bit of the trip, actually. And but I wasn't tired. I wasn't fatigued. I didn't feel like I needed to switch and, drive.
I think the big thing is it's more like being a passenger. Like, you can't go to sleep, obviously, so there's a thing.
It's not exactly like being a passenger.
But yeah, it's in between.
I don't know how to describe it, because you do have to be very aware. You have to pay attention, especially... you learn the places where you think, okay, well, I think this is an area, like if it's road construction, you definitely have to be a lot more
aware. Just
ready to take the wheel at any time if you need to, that kind of thing. But even in those moments, it's more you being comfortable with what happens is what I found, because it actually does the right thing. It's just a little...
It's not quite
finicky.
Human. Yeah.
It's just a little finicky, and so you just have to be ready. And so I think it's comfort. I know we've talked about this. It's your comfort level when you're doing it.
But I think the big thing for driving around the city, going to work is one thing, but when you're on 20+ hour road trip, the exhaustion level, being a human being, you get tired and you get loopy after a while.
Yeah.
And there comes a time when you just let's see if I can get this back. And there comes a time when you just aren't at your 100%. There's just no way a human being can. And the beauty of the full self-driving computer is it's always fresh and ready to go. And that's really, really huge. Mm-hmm. So, if you think like, I can drive an hour myself, no problem. But after 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours, and your brain gets addled and exhausted, and you just get tired. And so full self-driving is actually better than a human especially on the highway after a long period of time. So
Yeah.
and it just keeps the whole like being exhausted thing way down. You get to where you're going. Like we drove all the way here, spent the night in the car, and then we were like, hey, let's just go ahead and go to Starbase instead of checking into the hotel and sleeping for a couple hours, which normally I think is kind of the case. You're just like, oh, I'm too tired, I can't handle it. So yeah, I think it's really nice. Full self-driving, I just can't say enough about.
I don't think I can quite explain what it is, because you're still driving, but it's just not.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's not the same thing.
It's not
all
the
right.
same.
So next up.
So it can still be a little funky on back roads.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Definitely.
You know, but even then, I think it goes back to you being comfortable with what's going on, and if it starts to do something funky, it's almost like that it reacts maybe half a second slower than what you would in those situations. So, but I've gotten better about just letting it do what it does and not snatching and taking over, which is a problem that I have with it, is that I'm just like, it's not doing what I want it to do immediately, I'm going to take over. And when I say that, it's like half a second. You're talking half a second that it reacts, but that
so
is
usually if you just
hardest.
wait that. Usually you look at me like, why aren't you slowing down? And I'm like, just wait, and then it slows down.
Yeah, yeah. Usually it's like, what the frick, John? And before I even finish, it's
it's already doing this thing.
It's doing it.
But you know, again, on a long road trip, there's just not that much time that you actually are driving on funky back roads. You're mostly on an interstate or something, at least in the United States. So
and I think honestly, the average person isn't going to be using that. Well, I mean, if they're a beta tester, they will be using it on that. But John likes to test it because he likes to test it and see what it's doing. I don't use it on back roads as much as you do because I'm just not as comfortable.
But anyway, in short, 99% of the time we were using full self-driving. Worked great, very relaxing, super good. Can't say enough good things about it. Really is, like when you drive another car where you actually have to drive, you just did that down to Tampa. It must have been a lot more tiring to do that in the Mazda.
I did, but I wasn't with you. So I stopped when I wanted to stop, and I rested when I wanted to rest. I wasn't just like hammered down on the road, you know, so that made it a little bit, John takes his driving seriously.
I do. I take everything seriously. Everything's serious.
So heat mirages.
Yeah, people asked about that. We did a really short video about that, but in Texas especially, as we got here and it was just super hot, there was like mirages on the road, just heat reflections, and it did cause some really weird like slowdowns and stuff, and a lot of other people have said that happens to them too. So just, you know, an interesting note. It is one of the foibles of it. What it does is it thinks it sees something, and so it slows, and then it stops slowing, and then it slows, you know, so it's kind of like jerking back and forth. So anyway.
It was cool to see that happening. It's cool just coming out here because it's not as flat where we are, so you just don't get that kind of thing happening.
Yeah, North Georgia is very rolly.
It was fun. It was. I wouldn't say it was fun. It was an experience to see that, to see it doing that. Yeah, so I think.
Oh, destination chargers, yes.
Yeah, destination
chargers. So this is one of the things that we didn't really understand before we got a Tesla, but there's a lot of destination chargers at hotels, at other places. When we went to Jekyll Island for that conference earlier this year, there was a destination charger there. Destination charger at the Pearl Hotel. There are a couple of low, I think 75 kilowatt superchargers on the island as well, but then there's even one at a state park. There's like some destination chargers there. So
Rocket Ranch had one.
Rocket Ranch, which again we're going to do a review of. They had a really the best destination charger I've seen. So there's a lot of them. So check with your hotel or wherever you're staying when you go, because you may not even need to worry about supercharger. Like once we got here onto the island, we just plug it into the destination charger, drive around, do our thing. When we come back, we plug it in, and it's ready to go the next day.
It's just really, it's just really a lot more common now. So it's not. I think it's. Well, I don't want to say it's that common, but I was going to say that I feel like
it's so funny. I just got a notification from Tesla that our charging is done. So speaking of ironic timing, they're not ironic, whatever, coincidental timing. Anyway, so definitely keep an eye out for destination chargers. They're free generally, and a really nice convenience for EV cars.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we're also seeing that beside the Tesla ones, if they have Tesla specific, that they're now putting in there's not as many, one or
Right.
two of the regular. I don't know what, but for other people to charge their.
And that actually brings us to the next point.
Yeah.
Which was, would I try this in another EV? No.
No.
Not even a chance. We just actually saw a Ford Mach-E, really pretty car. I mean, it looks great.
It's a gorgeous
Yeah,
car.
it's very pretty, very attractive
it's a
vehicle.
really gorgeous
but
car.
they drove it here, and there was only one charger that wasn't Tesla, and it was full, and it's still full. So they're parked there, and they can't charge.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's... But beyond that, I mean, the destination chargers is one thing, but the supercharger system that Tesla's got in place is just huge.
The infrastructure is just
the
so
infrastructure
much.
is ridiculous that they've got. And we have started to see a few other ones crop up, but there was a Hyundai Ioniq, I think, that was
a
parked.
Kia.
Oh, a Kia. Anyway,
It was a Kia.
I don't remember which model it was, but I went and looked because they had it plugged into a charger that was next to the Tesla superchargers in Noonan, Georgia. And so I went and looked, and it said 7.5 kilowatts compared to 250 for, you know. So it's like, that's great if you're going into the store and you just want to top up a little bit, but you are not going to, you can't road trip with charging speeds like that.
It would just take too long.
It would take forever, and there would be range anxiety, and I don't know about all their calculations, whether their computers are as good, you know, whether they keep up with it. So no way I would try it right now.
We've started paying closer attention to them at different places, because
Right.
you see them. You see them at grocery stores, you see them at shopping centers, you see them at, you know, Kohl's has them, you know, that kind of thing. And then, but oftentimes when we walk by, they're broken or something like that. And so I think other than just having to pad in time for how long it would take to charge it completely to continue on your way, but then saying, okay, I'm gonna navigate to this one, so I'm gonna go there, but then you get there and it's busted or broken or it's being used because there's only one or two, and then you're like, oh, now I have to pad in for incidentals like that to where I can get to another one. So I don't think it would be worth it. We haven't done it, but I don't know that it would be worth it, especially, you know, the way we want to get in the car and keep going.
Well, I mean, we're looking at this is a long road trip. You know, it's a lot of hours on the road, and I would not want to chance it with a car.
And I feel like, and I don't know why we didn't discuss this, but like every couple of hours this time, and sometimes even before 2 hours are up, we were stopping, even if it was just 10 minutes to charge at the Tesla.
I just think it's because there are fewer options this direction.
So they're like having you, when there is an option, they're having you stop and charge.
But it, you know, like I said, it recalculates, it figures it all out, and it's always keeping in mind, like, what's the fastest way, and it will recalculate even after you start, especially when we get to like Texas and stuff where the speed limit's like 75 or 80 miles an hour. It burns through the battery fast then because it's going so fast, pushing a lot of air. So anyway, so it will go down really quickly. But, you know, again, it's not a problem. The computer says when you need to stop, you stop.
Yeah,
we've got our tolerance set at 10%, I think, right now. So you can change that if you want. But we have it set so that if the battery drops below 10%, it recalculates and figures out a different place.
Yeah, but another thing that John has to constantly explain to me, and I still don't 100% understand, is the fact that, you know, he'll say, oh, it's going to stop us at this one, but I'd rather stop at this one. Right. And I'll say, oh, well, then why don't we just stay at the charger a little bit longer and top it off? Because it doesn't always get you to 100% whenever to go. And I'm like, well, why don't we just stay a few extra minutes? And then John has to remind me, you know, well, staying those few extra minutes, you know, isn't really going to net you a whole lot more. Right. It's just going to take more time.
Getting to 80% is really fast. Getting between 80% and 100% takes a long time. So, so it's like, just trust the computer. It knows what it's doing. It's going to get you there fastest. So we found that pretty much, like, if we stay an extra 10 minutes because we're shopping or eating or something, it doesn't really help that much. Usually when it says you're ready to go, just go ahead and go, unless you have a reason to be doing something else. So, all right, and then I think the last thing was
the
karaoke.
Karaoke.
Thank you, Elon. He suggested that before we left, and we were like, oh yeah, we should probably try that out. So we spent 3 hours screaming our heads off in the car. And
we lost our voices.
It was a blast. So that's great for a road trip. Karaoke is awesome. So we highly recommend that. So anyway, hopefully this explains a bunch of things. And again, let's see if I can get a little background shot up there of Starbase and the launch tower and everything back there.
Yeah, it is. Yep. Well, I can't point my finger to it because you won't be able to see it, but it's right there in the middle.
Right over where that one little peaked roof is where the main manufacturing plant is, and then over on the other side. I can't even see it, honestly. It's too small in this view. But I know it's there. So anyway, everybody have a lovely day. Thank you so much. Again, if you're interested in these shirts, just check them out. Oh, there we go. Do it. That's right. Check them out on the merch store. And thank you for putting up with the weird camera angles. I'm working off of holding this. It was
Somebody
a long time
didn't bring a tripod.
Somebody didn't bring a tripod. Somebody was stupid. So anyway, apologies about that. Everybody have a great day, and we will talk to you all later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.